when we first started out, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram or Twitter or any of the social channels. And in the last 5 years, I think a lot of people, particularly on the social side of things, have gone into that and then come back out of it. So, although I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, you would have found your mate's birthday party on Facebook and been invited and used that as your diary. My feeling is that people are moving away from that and trying to put their phones down and actually enjoy the time that they've got with their friends in the bars. We're certainly seeing a lot of that, although it is the moment that people break off from their group. Someone goes to the toilet, someone goes for a cigarette if they still smoke, another behaviour that's been changed. That person straight back out onto their phone. And I think, I'm not sure where that's going to develop into, but it's certainly interesting to watch it happen from the outset. Yeah. Luxury as a term, I suppose it's relative, isn't it? If you're in a certain bracket of earnings, luxury to you is probably 25% above what you would normally spend on something. And so if you're earning 150 grand a year, then a night at Le Mans is luxury, But if you're earning $1 million a year, then a night at Le Mans is just a nice night out, So then that's sort of taking that example. Whereas with the LCC, we know that our target demographic hasn't really changed in the last 10 years, and particularly in the last 5, we know that if you're sort of 19 or 20 and you've just moved you finished university 2021, 22. You got your first job, you can go to LCC for happy hour and have a nice night out and try some world-class cocktails. And so I suppose that to them is probably a nice little slice of something almost luxury. Whereas if you're in your second or third year, third job out of uni, and you're living in London and you've got a bit more disposable income, you've probably grown up going to London Cocktail Club, and now it's not so much of a luxury for you. We do have upselling stuff on our back bar, a lot of premium products that we use. We know premiumization is a word or a phrase that has been thrown around, particularly in the last few years. People are more willing to come in for 1 or 2 less drinks at £2 or £3 more per drink based on what's actually in the glass. I think when you talk about premiumization, people are becoming much more aware of what's on the back bar, and much more aware of what they like as well. I think the education that has gone into the industry has actually been found and felt in the consumer side as well. And I think the consumers go out now with a much more conscious awareness of what they're actually drinking. Brands have, classic, you remember what 15 years ago when you entered the industry, you'd have a brand rep come around with their portfolio and they'd sit at the end of the bar and they'd tell you about distillation and they'd tell you about each one of their products and why they were so good. I mean, that's not really changed. All that has changed is the content and information that's being delivered to bartenders, and then the bartenders talking to the customers and actually being able to relay that in bite-sized bits of information that are digestible, and also make for a better experience. So, if you look at that chain of information, the bartender goes to the distillery, learns about, the process of distillation and why this process is different to that. Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. And so if you look at that chain of information where the bartender is learning from the brand, whether it's brand manager, brand owner, master distiller, they're then being able to transfer that information or portray that information as a bit of a story to the consumer. They might say, I was at this distillery last week and I tried this and I got to make this cocktail and I'd love you to try it. I think once they get that feeling of a bit of an emotional attachment to it, it makes it much easier for the customer to then sort of assimilate what's going on.
That's cool. I think your thoughts on the sort of holistic experience of being in a bar, but this is luxury or mass mainstream, whichever. It would be interesting to hear from you how you think expectations of the experience have evolved or heightened.
I think consumers' expectations of experience has changed vastly, because it's not only going into a bar or a restaurant to have a drink. It's when they're traveling, the global travel retail market, they're walking through duty free and seeing everything, and it's all very visceral. It smells and sights and sounds, and they're going to wherever they do their shopping, there's always that added little extra bonus feature. And so everything from the booze trade is sort of all-encompassing, and the way that they're experiencing it is vastly different. It's not just a taste anymore. It's now a taste and a smell. And it's gone from taste and smell to sight and sound. And a lot of the things probably 4 to 5 years ago we saw coming in were all-encompassing. So you go into a room and you vaporize a gin and tonic or something like that. I think we got to a point where there was the creative juices of the industry were flowing, and I think we're going to see, or we are seeing now, that sort of being pared back a little bit, and people not racing out after work to go and try that crazy new experience, but to actually start putting their knowledge of what they like into practice and going out and finding something new for themselves.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't know if there are any great examples of those kind of experiences that are getting that balance just right.
What we try to do at London Cocktail Club is balance that experience. We know that going out to a normal regular cocktail bar, is nice to go and sit at the bar with a friend or sit at a table and get a bit of table service, and that's lovely. And if there's a bit of music, that's live music's fantastic. But what we try and do at LCC is make it a full visceral experience. So the minute you walk in, you can feel the intensity of the room. And if you're not on that hamster wheel, you get onto it pretty quick because, someone's going to say hello to you. They're going to welcome you in and give you a menu. The lights are probably going to be swinging. The music's going to be loud. And that. So what, I suppose from a physiological perspective, people will have to lift their chins and project their voices to people. And they have to, when you do that, you start using more oxygen and your brain starts going, you're having a drink, and all of a sudden you start to get that level of intensity around your own night out. Of course, if there's only 5 people in the bar, that's not going to necessarily be the case. But what we try and do is manage that at peak times, and know that at peak times, the staff have to be really on the ball to make sure that the experience the customer is getting is just as valuable to that customer as, the drinks that they're paying for.
Is a bad guess.
Yeah, sure. If only we all had a crystal ball to look into, but the way we're seeing trends, I suppose, we look at them from a few different perspectives. We look at them from how much people are spending, of course. We look at what they are spending it on. We look at what times they're coming in. And we also wonder why they're not coming in at certain times, and I think if you look at the whys, you've also got to look at the why nots. When we distill all of that down, what we're trying to do is not just have the offer of the next trend. So, we talk about low and no ABVs. We talk about having a separate cocktail menu or tailoring masterclasses for vegans and vegetarians and having all of that information available. It's great that our staff have it. It's great that we can train that through. It's great that they have an understanding of it. But how do you pass that over to the customer? That's a really good question, and one that I don't know if anyone's worked it out yet. But we'll certainly keep doing that process of gathering information, distilling it down, training that through to the staff. And I think doing that and allowing the staff to be engaged with the training and education that we give them on all of this stuff about wellness and in hospitality, which is probably different to a lot of others, considering we're in an environment where consuming alcohol is not foreign to staff. Even on shift, sometimes they might have a drink. They're certainly encouraged to taste all the drinks that are going out to make sure the balance is right. But again, we're a party style bar, so getting involved with the staff and really bringing that entertainment. Are people going to want to stop going out and partying? Well, we certainly hope not. But maybe our Monday, Tuesdays and Wednesday nights will be slightly different offer to the way it is on Thursday, Fridays and Saturdays. Yeah, I think looking at a drinks experience and an industry experience from a consumer's side of things, being a part of an individual company that operates multiple sites, it's sometimes you might feel like your hands might be tied and you only offer one thing to a certain person. But when you look at what else you can offer within your own 4 walls, we do things like cocktail masterclasses, but going out above and beyond that, we can do events and industry events and consumer-led events. We also get involved as much as possible with a lot of the industry and trade events. So things like the London Cocktail Week, which I think